You deploy your application to a Kubernetes cluster. The terminal reports that every pod is healthy and running smoothly. But when you open a web browser to test it, the connection hangs, spins, and eventually collapses into an error state. To understand why this happens, you have to start with the core rule of Kubernetes networking. The system assigns a unique, dedicated IP address to every single pod in the cluster. If you are used to running standard Docker environments, you typically rely on mapping internal container ports directly to the host machine's network. Kubernetes avoids those port collisions entirely by giving each pod its own address space. But pods are highly ephemeral. The cluster's control plane will routinely kill, reschedule, or restart them to balance workloads, apply updates, or recover from crashes. The immediate consequence of this lifecycle is that pod IP addresses change instantly and unpredictably the second a pod restarts. Because of this constant churn, if you try to hard code a pod's IP address into your application's logic or cache it for future requests, you will trigger fatal routing errors as soon as that pod is inevitably replaced. This creates a paradox. The pod IP address is absolutely necessary to establish communication, yet it is untrustworthy for architectural planning. Building a reliable connection on top of this volatility means moving beyond individual addresses and finding a way to stabilize a system in constant motion. At the lowest level, a single pod operates as an isolated network namespace. All containers running inside communicate through a shared local host pipeline. There is a hidden pause container running in every pod, whose sole job is to hold this namespace open and preserve the IP address, even if primary containers crash. Because the containers share this exact same network namespace, they also share the same ports. If two containers inside try to listen on port 80, they trigger a fatal conflict. Moving one level up, we look at the physical architecture required to send a request between two different pods on the same worker node. Each pod thinks it has a standard Ethernet device, so it sends the outbound packet through its own virtual ETH0 interface. That interface is actually one end of a virtual Ethernet tunnel, labeled VTH-X, connecting directly into the host node. The packet arrives at a network bridge called CBR0, which immediately interrogates all connected local VTH interfaces, asking which one holds the destination IP address. When the target pod acknowledges the IP, the bridge drops the packet down the corresponding tunnel, completing the node-level transfer. If the network bridge queries local interfaces and gets no response, it knows the destination IP doesn't exist on this specific node, triggering a routing fallback mechanism. This is where the Container Network Interface, or CNI plugin, steps in. The CNI manages a cluster-wide routing table that maps specific blocks of IP addresses to specific nodes. The cluster-level routing table checks the target IP, identifies the correct external node, and directs the packet out of the local gateway and across the network to its final destination. This physical networking layer maps IPs across nodes, yet it fails the moment a pod dies. We need a higher-level software abstraction that persists even when the underlying pod does not. This translucent blue plane represents a cluster IP service. It is the primary software abstraction Kubernetes uses to solve the problem of pod ephemerality. A cluster IP provides a permanent, static virtual IP address that never changes, regardless of how many times the pods beneath it are destroyed and rebuilt. Kubernetes Core DNS automatically assigns a static DNS name to this virtual IP. This allows your internal microservices to request data using a reliable name, completely ignoring the volatile pod IPs below. However, there is a mechanical gap here. The service object itself possesses zero internal routing intelligence. It is just an address, and it cannot actually forward traffic on its own. To figure out which ephemeral pods it represents, the service relies entirely on label selectors. It scans the cluster for any pod carrying a specific tag, like app equals frontend. The actual routing is handled by the endpoints object. This acts as the mechanical bridge connecting the static service to the ever-changing pods. You can think of the endpoints object as a live, dynamically updated VIP list. It strictly tracks the active IP addresses of the specific pods the service is currently targeting. A background process called kubeproxy constantly monitors this endpoints list, using it to execute the actual physical traffic forwarding rules on every node in the cluster. But simply being alive doesn't mean a pod is prepared for traffic. A A container might be running, but still actively connecting to a database or loading a cache. Routing live user requests to this pod would cause immediate timeouts. To prevent this, Kubernetes uses a readiness probe as a strict mechanical gatekeeper. If a pod fails its readiness check, its IP is instantly severed from the endpoints list. Traffic stops flowing to it immediately, preventing errors from cascading to the end user. Reliable traffic stability in Kubernetes doesn't come from static routing rules. It relies entirely on this continuous, real-time reconciliation of the endpoints list against active pod help checks. The internal service planes now handle internal traffic, but these addresses are strictly isolated from the public internet by the cluster's perimeter wall. The absolute base layer of external exposure is a service type called node port. It acts as a physical hole punched directly through the cluster's defensive perimeter. Node port works by forcibly opening a static, high-numbered port between 30,000 and 32,767 on every single worker node in the cluster to accept external connections. This works for local testing, but managing arbitrary high-numbered ports and exposing nodes directly is insecure and mechanically unsuited for production traffic. To handle production scale, Kubernetes offers the load balancer service type, which acts as an automation layer built directly on top of node ports. When you declare a load balancer service, Kubernetes automatically triggers your external cloud provider, like AWS or GCP, to provision a physical load balancing appliance in their infrastructure. Traffic flows from the public internet into the external cloud load balancer, gets distributed down into the node ports, and finally routes to the pods. But this one-to-one architecture introduces a critical scaling flaw. Deploying 100 different microservices requires 100 dedicated load balancers, exhausting public IPs and incurring exorbitant cloud billing. To eliminate this sprawl, you use an ingress resource. Ingress is a resource consolidation solution designed to sit in front of your internal services. By utilizing Ingress, you reduce your entire external footprint down to a single cloud load balancer and a single public IP address. Instead of brute-forcing ports, the Ingress controller actively parses the incoming HTTP request paths to understand what the user is asking for. It uses those paths to execute intelligent Layer 7 routing. It reads the URL and cleanly forwards /API traffic to the backend cluster IP and /app traffic to the frontend cluster IP. Modern external routing is an exercise in cost-saving resource multiplexing. You push all external traffic through a single intelligent choke point, letting it sort the requests before they ever reach the services. To synthesize this entire architectural stack, let's trace a real-world web request top to bottom. The request hits the single public IP of the Ingress controller, which reads the path and hands the packet off to the correct internal cluster IP. The virtual service is immediately resolved against the dynamic endpoints list via kubeproxy, which identifies the precise node housing a healthy pod. Finally, the packet physically traverses across the node's CBR0 bridge, shoots down through the veth-ternal, and hits the listening container port. Every single nested layer in this trace is responsible for handling one specific decoupled abstraction, ensuring your traffic survives constant infrastructure death. But there is a hidden vulnerability inherent in this highly connected architecture: the flat network topology. By default, Kubernetes networking is entirely permissive. There are no restrictions stopping any pod in any namespace from contacting any other pod. If a public-facing front-end pod gets compromised by a malicious actor, that flat network allows the attacker to freely query your internal, highly sensitive back-end databases. To prevent this, you have to implement network policies. These act as the required explicit control layer to secure inter-pod communication, severing unauthorized traffic pathways. Network policies utilize the exact same label selectors as services. You write a rule stating that the database pods will only accept traffic from pods explicitly labeled as the backend DivPI. By applying these policies, you implement a default deny philosophy. If a communication pathway is not explicitly allowed by a network policy, it is automatically blocked. The system maintains connectivity through constant reconciliation, turning the chaos of ephemeral pods into a manageable and secure network.